Hey y'all, welcome to Adventures with Aggie, brought to you by the Ryan Martin Foundation. In case you missed it, last week we partnered with Kickoff Coffee Co. They're a coffee company that is giving us a discount code to order their awesome coffee beans, so go check out our Instagram post at Adventures with Aggie on Instagram to see our code and to order some coffee. Today, we're featuring Shelby Baron from the University of Alabama wheelchair tennis team and also Team USA. She's going to tell us all about how she's coached and played this sport for so many years. Please welcome Shelby. Awesome. Well, Shelby, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited to add you to our Alabama Adapted series. But first, could you just start with giving us some background into who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Shelby Baron. I'm originally from Honolulu, Hawaii, and I was born with spina bifida, which is a congenital disease, and it affected my spinal cord and resulted in paralysis in my lower body. So originally I started off walking with crutches and braces, and it was getting progressively more difficult, and my PE teacher actually had to contact somebody, an adaptive PE specialist, and ask them, what can I do with my student? She's getting slower than the rest of her classmates, and I still want to be able to put her in sports. And so I was around 9 years old and I was introduced to a wheelchair for the very first time. And so the wheelchair was really just meant for sports initially. And I met a local basketball player, and he kind of just told me different things like, here's how you do a wheelie, here's how you move around, and then also a little bit of how you shoot a basketball. But that didn't really stick with me because I was terrible at it. I couldn't make a basket. And in Hawaii, we didn't have that many adaptive athletes. So as you know, like we need like 10 people in wheelchairs on a court. And that was very, very difficult to do every week. And around the same time, my brother had started playing tennis. We were very close, and I wanted to do everything just like him. So I started playing tennis, and I joined a junior league, had some goals from there to play at nationals. And my mom actually found me a junior wheelchair tennis camp when I was 15 years old. And that was the very first time that I had played wheelchair tennis with people my age, with my disability. And it was just an amazing experience. So I got really into it there, and national coaches saw me and they said, hey, let's get you in some tournaments and maybe even on our national team. So from there, I started playing wheelchair tennis tournaments. And at one of them, I met our adaptive athletic director here, Brent Harden. So he saw that I was in college. I was college aged, and he was trying to build up his tennis program at that time. So he told me, hey, like we might have a scholarship for you. Come check out the campus and let's get you over here. So I didn't even care what my my campus tour was like. I just wanted to get away from home really and experience something new. So I made the move to the South, and I have never looked back. I completed my undergrad degree and my graduate degree in speech pathology. And during my time here, I worked with my coach, Evan Enquist, and we got better. I got really, really involved in the game, invested in the game because, you know, I was part of a team environment here where we woke up early and went to weights together, and we practiced and we studied. And so it was a really, really great experience while improving my tennis game. And then I ended up qualifying for Rio in 2016. I was a last minute wild card, so I don't really count it as the true qualification, but I did win my first round of singles and doubles. And then from there, after I graduated in 2019, I decided that I wanted to focus solely on tennis so that I could try to qualify this time by myself for Tokyo. And when the pandemic hit, I was a volunteer assistant coach. So I kind of put my life on hold for another year, and it was a really great decision. I kind of took a step back from tennis for a few months, just to keep myself safe, as well as focus on more of like my mental game strategy. And I really fell in love with the sport again. And in August, I went off to Tokyo, and it was probably the best achievement in my life so far to date. So that's a little bit about my story. Right now, I am paid, no longer volunteer assistant coach, and I'm just having the best time right now post Tokyo. But in the meantime, I do have to start looking for a job in speech therapy.
That is so much an incredible resume. And thank you for also just like setting the stage for the rest of what we're going to talk about, because kind of walking through it helps a lot. But I guess backtracking, I can't wait to get to kind of our most recent developments of Tokyo and stuff like that. But backtracking first, can you just talk about the adjustment from moving from Hawaii to Alabama and what that was like?
Yes, it was very, very different. I definitely went into a bit of culture shock just because the people here are different. They're very, very nice. There's that Southern hospitality and everything. But it's just some different things to get used to, especially the food. I remember my very first Thanksgiving. There's a lot of butter and fried food down here. So I remember that I was having a hard time. I had like the worst stomach ache in my life my first Thanksgiving because I went too hard on the sweet potato casserole and the pies and everything. But it's been really fun, and I really enjoy the environment we have here. We have kind of like a family, an adaptive athletic family at the university. So I haven't left yet. So it's been really fun.
Glad you're sticking around in Alabama and nothing's run you away. That's awesome. Cool. Well, let's talk about kind of playing in Alabama and how was the transition into a coaching job there?
Yeah, it was really tough. And I think the biggest thing was I was starting to coach some of my former teammates because I was the only one that graduated that year. So all of my teammates, except for one freshman, were like my peers practically. So I had a hard time kind of telling them what to do. And I didn't really want to like step on any toes or anything. So it took me a while to adjust, and I was still playing tournaments. So at some of the tournaments, there was the possibility of me playing some of my teammates. So it was a really weird feeling. But I've gotten used to it since. I've been doing that for a couple of years, and now I'm kind of taking some steps away from tournaments, especially ones that Alabama will be traveling to, so that I can focus more on the coaching side of things. But overall, I think I have a really great relationship with most of our athletes, and we're really working on recruiting now. So we have an old team. They're mostly seniors or are going to be seniors or in grad school. So we're trying to get like a whole new batch of players in the next few years.
Absolutely. Well, I hope some people listen to this, then they come knocking on your door to come play for you guys.
Yeah.
That's the goal. That's the goal. Awesome. Okay. I want to talk about high performance. Did you have this like wow moment when you realized that going high performance was going to be an option for you? Or I guess, how did that part of your career come about?
Yeah, so when I was in Hawaii, I had little goals here and there, like make it to sectionals, make it to nationals, those little things. But I was playing with my able-bodied team, and I didn't really know where I could go with wheelchair tennis as a career. And when I went to that junior camp in Mission Viejo, California, it was run by the national coaches, the USTA national coaches. And Dan James, who was the head coach and national manager at the time, he kind of spoke to me on the side. He pulled me away from everybody, and he said, hey, would you consider playing tournaments and eventually qualifying for the Paralympics? I was like, what are the Paralympics? And he just wanted to set the scene for me. He's like, okay, imagine you're in the biggest stadium of your life and you're in this dark tunnel. Everyone around you is in their Ralph Lauren, opening ceremony gear. And as soon as you step out, all the lights are going off. The stadium is full, and there's 40,000 people shouting USA, USA, and there's fireworks and everything. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. And I remember him like explaining that to me. And when it happened in Rio, where we had a full stadium of spectators, that happened. And I was like, wow, this is like my dream come true. This is like, 6 years in the making. So that was kind of the moment that really sticks out in my mind. And along with that, I went to my very first wheelchair tennis tournament in Taiwan, because in Hawaii, it's kind of the same cost to fly to the US or Asia. So I went to Taiwan. I did okay in singles for my first tournament. I think I made it to the semifinals. And then for doubles, I played with this woman from Thailand, and she didn't speak any English. So we kind of like were signing to each other, like, this is what we're going to do. And we made it to the finals, and we beat a local Taiwanese team. So so that was also like another thing, like, okay, like I tried it out, I can do something, let's keep going from there.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, let's kind of keep or grow on this high performance track that we're on now. Could you give us maybe some highlights from Tokyo this past month? Was it a month ago? Maybe a little over a month now?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was very different. Like, I know that we had been living in a COVID kind of bubble for the past year and a half, but it was the most amount of time that I've worn a mask in like 90-degree weather. And I do play an outdoor sport. So I'm kind of used to the heat. I live in Alabama. I'm training in Florida. And but it was just a whole nother level of heat, and you're wearing a mask and you're just walking around everywhere. So it was a bit different. But it's everything we were preparing for. So I was just trying to take it all in. Like, every morning you woke up and you did your COVID test. But then after that, you could choose, whatever USA outfit from Nike or Ralph Lauren that you wanted to wear. So that was extremely fun. And then you go down to the dining hall, and you couldn't really speak too much to the person right next to you because there was plexiglass all over the place. But the food selection was amazing. I'm half Japanese, and I've grown up eating Japanese food my entire life. So I was just in heaven. I didn't have to cook. I didn't have to clean. It was really, really fun. And I enjoyed that. And the tennis, I did end up losing my first round matches for singles and doubles against very tough opponents. But I walked away with it with no regrets, basically, because I'd been working with my mental coach for a year. And he really helped me to focus more on the process versus the outcome. And really my goal was to qualify for Tokyo. And then anything that happened after that would have been extra. So it was a major disappointment in the moment, just because within 48 hours of losing your match, you had to fly home. So it kind of felt like a punishment. But then I came to terms with it as I came home, and I had a lot of support from my teammates. And they did really well as well. So I got to support them still from home and keep in touch with them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a crazy accomplishment. I couldn't never imagine myself qualifying for any kind of games at that caliber. I'm super excited to see you and everybody else on the team to qualify and go over there in these crazy circumstances that we were having all around the world. But it was awesome to watch, despite losing lots of sleep during those few weeks that Ryan was over there.
Yeah.
But it was crazy to watch 3 a.m. turn on wheelchair tennis. Why not? But
yeah,
it was great.
Yeah, it was crazy for us too, the jet lag. And then we were in a heat rule, so we'd wake up at the same time every morning and then just sit around at the courts all day. And then I think one of my matches, I stepped out on court at like 9 o'clock at night, even though I'd been up for over 12 hours.
Wow.
It was really difficult, but we all made it through, and it was fun.
Definitely. Yes. Unforgettable experience with crazy circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
But, a follow-up to that, I wanted to ask how you've seen the sport, wheelchair tennis, and the Paralympic movement evolve in your years involved in the sport.
Overall, the coverage has been increased like every single year. And I think that's super important, because a lot of people, when I first started playing tennis, didn't even know what wheelchair tennis was. They would see me out on the courts, think that I was just amazing. And they'd ask me all these questions like, oh, you play tennis? Like, do you play with a smaller racket? Like, do you play with a smaller court? And I'd be like, no, like I'm playing tennis just like you. I'm just sitting in a wheelchair instead, and I get 2 bounces. So I think that it's so important for people to be able to see all these different sports, not only to understand, but as well as like getting younger kids into these sports early on. Like I hadn't found out about the Paralympics until I was like 15 years old. And to me, that's really late for somebody, who has a congenital disability. Like I love sports. I completely love sports. And I should have been, playing tennis, like, as soon as I could pick up a racket, practically. I think my mom, instead, she was trying to find things for me to do so I wouldn't feel left out. And she was finding me like singing and dancing lessons. And I completely hated that. It didn't match my personality. So Yeah, I think that's been the biggest thing. And then so from that media coverage and everything, you get sponsorships after that. And the biggest thing for me has been Toyota. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but whoever opted in for this Toyota sponsorship, is getting supported. And I just went out this past week on Monday and purchased a new car. So that was amazing. Like that kind of support for Paralympic athletes. That like we're in a high right now, and I think we can keep growing. But I'm very thankful for those opportunities right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to kind of go off what you were talking about your you and your mom learning about the sports as you were doing it. I guess it was kind of an active process of trying to figure out where you were going to go. But looking back on that now, I guess what have you learned about yourself as an athlete through playing tennis?
I really never knew what I could do. Like, I think when I was growing up, being the only disabled person at my school and in my community, I really just saw myself as different. And I was really hyper focused on all the things that I could not do. Like, these are all the things my classmates can do, and I can't do that. But now being a part of the adaptive athletic world, I'm doing all these things, and I'm finding my independence. And I was able to play sports alongside my classmates and my family. And wheelchair tennis is really unique in that way, where I can play with an able-bodied partner or opponent, and I don't need anybody else in a wheelchair to play with me. Because that's like, we don't have rules like that. Like basketball, you need everybody to be in a wheelchair, or else you're running into people, you're running over toes or stuff like that. So I'm grateful that I found tennis so that I could really feel like I belong somewhere.
Absolutely. Awesome. I want to kind of transition from Team USA talk back to Alabama Adapted for a bit. How would you say that being an athlete at this organization and now transitioning to coaching has helped kind of adjust or maybe develop your coaching style, seeing both sides of the game?
I would say that, especially with like higher level athletes, as a coach, I kind of understand a lot more, and I have a lot more patience with like, outbursts and frustrations, because that's something that's really tough to understand until like you've really like experienced that yourself. But also at the same time, I feel like I've have a lot more tools to help out my athletes. Like, whatever I've learned from the numerous coaches I've had throughout my lifetime, they've all told me different things, and I've kind of retained a lot of it. And then even this past year and a half working with a mental coach, just having another set of tools and like how to approach the mental game, and giving my athletes like activities and things to work on. So I feel like that's really influenced the way I coach, and then also the confidence that I have like stepping out on the court.
For sure. I realized I never asked you about your athletes. How would you describe this group of Alabama Adapted athletes? And I guess just the community as a whole. I know you already mentioned they are family when you were talking about your Thanksgiving, but yeah, how would you describe your athletes and everybody involved?
I would say that we're like a little family as well. We work through a lot of like adversity training together, like on and off court, and we really understand each other. Like, we all come from similar but different backgrounds. Everybody is at a different place in their tennis career, but I really believe that like we are a little family just because we have gone through all these things together. And I think that's like the beauty of all like college sports. And not only do we have this little tennis family, but now like I have a good relationship with Ryan, and the other head coach Ford, and all their teams. So it's really good to just have like a built-in community. And even like disability related, there were so many things that I learned from them when I first came here, because I hadn't been around people in wheelchairs very much before. Like little things like I can walk a little bit, but I was like throwing in my wheelchair in the back of my car and like wasting all my energy and shoulder strength to like walk across the car and go sit in the driver's seat, versus like then I saw all these people like breaking apart their chair from the driver's seat and like putting it in the passenger seat in order to drive away and remain seated. And I was like, why am I why am I not doing that? So we're learning from each other in all these different aspects of life, like on and off court. So I think it's really cool that we have that working like relationship.
That's super cool to see that you're still learning from them as you're here in Alabama. I don't know, learning from each other, the community that you're around every single day too is really awesome. Great. Okay, 3 more questions for you. One more on Alabama, but more towards the young athletes that are listening to the show. So if there are young athletes out there who are maybe considering Alabama adapted sport, what would you say to them to get them to come check out your program?
I think our program really speaks for itself, actually. We have amazing facilities. This tennis facility I'm in right now just had its ribbon cutting at the beginning of October. And it's the only one of its kind just for wheelchair tennis athletes at the university. And then our other facility houses our 2 high performance wheelchair basketball teams, as well as all of our coaching staff and strength training, athletic training. So really, we're trying to give athletes that high performance, the varsity athletic feel, so that they can just focus mostly on their sports and academics as well. So I would just say, like, yeah, our facilities are our main attraction, but also the high performance side. Like, if you want to become a college level athlete, I think that this is one of the best places to come.
I'm convinced. I want to come visit too.
Yeah, you should. It's not very far.
Not too far at all. Maybe one holiday I'll make a stop by. And I'm dying to see the new facility that you're sitting in as well, because I heard lots of things. A couple of people were like, Aggie, you got to come down for the ribbon cutting. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in New York right now. I can't come.
Yeah, I know.
If I had been down there, I definitely would have stopped by. I love it.
Yeah, you should. We'll welcome you.
Yes, I love that. Need a tour one day. We can do an Adventures with Aggie takes on the facility itself.
Yes. Yeah, love it. Instagram live and everything.
Yes, I love it. Let's do it. Awesome. 2 more questions. So one was submitted by one of our listeners when we told him that we were doing a series on Alabama Adapted. He's a young athlete who is looking to learn more. So I guess specific to you and your coaching style, again, how do you continue your competitive drive, motivation, whatever you want to call it, for yourself and your athletes?
For myself, I really I have to find that deep down within. I just set my goals for myself personally. Like, what do I want to do eventually? Like when I was training for Tokyo, the big goal was qualify for Tokyo. And then I broke it down into little goals of like, all right, like, what do I need to do? I need to go to these tournaments, and at these tournaments, what do I need to do? Like, so stuff like that. So goal setting is really, really important to me. And it makes everything really, it lays everything out really nicely for myself, because that's the way my brain works. But for my athletes, really, like, we are 5-time defending national champions for wheelchair tennis. And so I think that is a lot of motivation in itself, like, to be able to lead the country in wheelchair tennis and collegiate athletics, and be able to maintain that title. Like, once you're at the top, it's easy to start to slack and think that you're the best. But, there are people out there just gunning for us, like, all the time. And it's not just us, it's football, it's basketball, softball, like, all the sports are on campus. So we're in a really great environment where our community is very sports minded. And so they support us, but then they also help to push us. So I think that's the greatest motivator in my mind. I don't know about my athletes, they can speak for themselves.
I would have to agree. I'm not one of the athletes, but that sounds like a pretty good pusher to me. But that's awesome too. I love it. First of all, so many championships. If I had something like that behind me, it definitely would push me ahead.
Yeah.
Awesome. Last question for you. I end all of my shows on this question. What is one piece of advice you would give to younger Shelby?
All right. I've been thinking about this. I definitely, especially at the beginning of COVID, where I was putting so much pressure on myself to qualify for Tokyo, it was like a really well-needed break to just be able to step off court for like however many weeks. I think it was like 6 weeks where I didn't even touch my racket. I did a lot of, home exercises, mental exercises, stuff like that to keep me active. But it was really great to take some time off. And then once I came back, I really was enjoying the sport, and it allowed me to get better and allowed me to just, want to be there. So I think for younger Shelby, there should always be something to keep you going. Just find a way to just have fun with the sport. And if you're not having fun, it's okay to take a break and just find that reason again when you want to come back.
For sure. I love it. This is my favorite question to end on, because I feel like hopefully they hear it and it resonates and then they take it off into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I heard that myself when I was younger.
Me too. Me too. Awesome. Well, Shelby, thank you so much for sharing your story and the story of Alabama Adapted with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I hope that, you are getting a better look inside of our program just by talking to all of us.
Shelby, thank you so very much for coming on the show and sharing your story. Join us for the last episode of the Alabama Adapted Athletics series on Adventures with Aggie, featuring Avery Downing, coming out on Thursday.